Hello, and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about Mexican-American history, politics, cultura, y más, brought to you in part by the Gámez Law Firm. I'm your host, Elaine Ayala, Metro columnist for the San Antonio Express News. My guests today are Aurelio Montemayor and Cristel Andrea Vara-Puente. Lots of long names. Aurelio is a senior education scholar at the Intercultural Development Resource Association, or IDRA. It's a prestigious think tank founded by the legendary educator Jose Cardenas. Aurelio has taught on all levels. He co-founded an independent Chicano college and is a teacher of teachers. He's also the author of a memoir. I just got my copy, El Curso de la Raza, The Education of Aurelio Manuel Montemayor. We'll learn more about him as we talk. Cristel is a very impressive scholar on her own. She was a Moody Graduate Fellow she still is a Moody Graduate Fellow at Southern Methodist University, seeking a PhD in American history. A non-traditional first-generation scholar from the start, she first studied photography at San Antonio College, and I can attest to her excellence in photography. She also earned an undergraduate degree in Mexican-American Studies as a Mellon Fellow at UTSA, and her master's at UTSA was as a Now History Fellow. She studies San Antonio history and the documentation of cultural barriers and San Antonio artist. But what I most love is that she's her self-selected academic moniker as Dr. Puente para la gente, to define her role as a community historian, a curator, a rascuaches scholar, and activist. Welcome to Nosotros.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you for being here and to talk about the subject of Fiesta and its troubling roots and how they continue to impact us. Before we get to questions, I like to play a little game of this or that with my guests. Feel free to answer in English, Spanish, or Spanglish.
All right.
A fog king's crown or a Fiesta crown made of papier-mâché flowers?
Fall King's Crown.
Why?
There's something about Fiesta flowers that's too papery for me.
Oh, you want a real crown.
Oh, okay.
I see.
All right.
I see. Well, that kind of makes me, question a little bit, because obviously I like things that are very glittery, like a lot.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So a real crown would have a lot of glitter, but I can also put glitter stuff on
a
Fiesta
crown.
I have to say it would be a Fiesta crown, because I can make that myself. And obviously, I probably would.
Yes. All right. The Order of the Alamo's coronation or King Anchovy's corneation?
The corneation.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts, right?
Yeah. 100%.
I've been to both, and I can tell you corneation's my favorite. The Battle of Flowers parade or the Flambeau parade?
Definitely the Flambeau parade. And I say that because when I was little, I remember being at the Battle of Flowers parade when it was really, really hot. And I think everybody knows, you don't want to sit out there in 103-degree heat. Like, the night parade's so much better. And then all the lights.
And the whole sort of, it feels like a community barbecue and an event where you're interacting with the people sitting around.
Right, very much, yeah.
Well, I grew up in Laredo, but when I came to live in San Antonio 49 years ago, that night I went to all the parades, and there was nothing like that night parade with the lights and stuff. And my friends and I,
Yes, of course. That's the other part.
Yeah.
Bring your own or buy at the vendors.
Yes.
A gordita from a street vendor or an antichucho skewer of sirloin at Nyosa? Ay, me da ganas right now.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because sometimes they overcook the meat a little bit, and then you're super disappointed because you waited in line forever, to get that. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I'm
a tough
vegetarian. I'm pescatarian, so I would go with the gordita made of beans from the lady on the sidewalk.
see. Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Show me your shoes or show me the money.
Show me the money.
Yeah. Easy.
I don't want
All
to
right.
buy shoes.
Okay, so
Oh no, I love shoes.
yeah, I
can
love
get
shoes.
with
I know.
money.
Yes. All right, this is the perennial question I ask all my gifts, and the last one: corn or flour? Be honest.
It depends what's stuffing it. Mm-hmm. You know, frijoles, flour. Papas con huevo, corn.
Ah, okay.
Well, I guess if you're on a diet, corn, right? Because
But who's on a diet during
But
Fiesta?
homemade corn, those little ones.
Oh, see, I know, absolutely.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
2 events propelled this podcast. 2 events that I experienced, both of them on social media. One was Cristel's ongoing research into the racist roots of Fiesta, which we'll get to later. The other was the character that Aurelio created, and I saw on social media, in which he'll become that character of Don Chon, who teaches us about these roots. So I want to ask Aurelio to perform in that character and read from one of his Fiesta lectures, and then we'll talk about it.
Órale, mijos y mijas. Let me tell you straight up how we saw Fiesta back in the day. Pa' que entiendan de dónde venimos y por qué some of us weren't buying all the confetti and cascarones. So when we see them waving flags and shouting, remember the Alamo, some of us like, hey, remember who you were raised to? Our culture ain't a costume. It's resistance. It's history, surviving in a system that wasn't made for us. But they want salsa, not struggle. Okay? That was
They
our Fiesta.
want salsa, not struggle. Okay, do another one.
King Antonio, more like King White Money. Have you ever seen the coronation, all the gowns, the tiaras, the rich folks acting like royalty? That's not our barrio. That's the elite, mostly white, mostly rich. They throw a party, but we don't always get a seat at that table.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about what you're trying to teach. Obviously, all of us, but I would imagine especially young people who are out there and probably do not know any of the roots of Fiesta, which I'll get to and have you describe, Cristel.
You know, I came to live in San Antonio. When I was little, we used to come visit San Antonio because I had tias and cousins here, but I grew up in Laredo. But when I moved to San Antonio permanently, close to 50 years ago, I remember all my friends who were Mayos and I had met in 68 and stuff like that.
Mayo is Mexican American Youth Organization,
Yeah.
which predated La Raza Unida.
Right, yes. Raza Unida Party flowed from that. But
All part of the Chicano Civil Rights.
when I came to San Antonio, and I remember my first fiesta here, Mario Compian and Nacho Perez and many others told me, look at the history. And I realized I didn't know what that history was. Of course, I came from a town that celebrates George Washington's birthday every year.
Okay,
and
more extreme, I think. A little bit
and
on
have
the
a fake
edge. That one.
Pocahontas. The children of the rich over there celebrate something else, but it's still the children of the rich celebrating, and La Raza and the poor people there. So I remember that it stayed with me, and every season it comes up and people argue against it, but somehow the festival aspect of it, I guess it's like Mardi Gras, it's so strong
Yes.
that people don't care where it came from.
That's right.
You know,
And it's a spring festival. I mean, civilizations the world over have spring festivals.
and all human beings like parties. You know, I mean, it's across all cultures. We like fiestas and flowers, but also we like education. We want better housing. We want our kids to go to good colleges. We want all those things. That doesn't mean we don't want to, well, you know, go with the paper flowers and all that. But that's not the most important thing in our life. Because when this mayor I heard from San Antonio said, well, you Mexicans like fiestas and flowers. Yeah.
I remember that quote.
You know,
Yeah.
but hey, we like many other things much more, and we're not getting them.
Cristel, tell us about the roots of Fiesta and why you find them troublesome.
Yes. So to, I guess, give a little background, I grew up loving Fiesta. I mean, my mother told me that the first time I went to Fiesta, I was a baby. I wasn't even like 1 year old. And every year it was something that we looked forward to. So I grew up like with this idea of it being so much fun and amazing, going to all these events. And then my mother also worked at the Alamo for over 20 years.
Oh my God.
So, right.
That combination right there.
Yeah. So needless to say, I had a very different perspective of Texas and Texas history. I guess kind of the mainstream.
The mainstream history. That's what we all learn.
Yeah. So this process for me of going into Mexican American studies and then working at the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, being around people that know the history like you, that know this history, exposing me to that. It was a long process that's still ongoing of like decolonizing and peeling back those layers, right? So part of that is, I guess in a nutshell, if I have to kind of put it that way, the reason critics or anti-Fiesta folks say that it's racist is because it's celebrating the Battle of San Jacinto. And in very simple terms, if you believe that the Texas Revolution was fought to keep slavery here, but Mexico had outlawed it.
Which is a fact.
Yes.
Yes, it's a historical
Any
fact.
celebration of that is endorsing slavery. So,
And thus racist.
right. So in a nutshell, like that's really kind of what it is. But we all know that there are so many other layers to that. And there's so many other things that we can talk about when we talk about Fiesta. And why do people say that it's racist?
Yes.
Right. So, all this is a difficult process, I think, for people who are from here.
Yeah. I think that we're beginning to peel back layers of Fiesta so that while we can understand it, we also better understand it.
Yes.
That we can move ahead with celebrations that better reflect our ideas, right? And one of the biggest, and this is to you as an educator, well, both of you are educators, but having history, especially the history of Texas, taught in an accurate way in our state has been very difficult.
I mean, just to get the Mexican American Studies course 6 years ago, which is just one elective, it took many people working for generations just to get there. And now they're calling that racism in reverse?
Yes.
Tan locos.
Yeah, and honestly, it's for scholars who are in school right now, it is devastating because all the work that was done before is in jeopardy of, in some places, being erased and being lost, and we've come so far.
Or not taught or
Right.
discouraged
And
from
those
being.
are historical facts that have been kept out of our history books. Historical facts.
So I want you to talk, Cristel, about the survey you've been conducting. I took it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You can find it on social media, and I'm sure you've been. Tell us about first what propelled it, why you wanted to do it, and what you're finding in your initial results.
Yeah, so the survey came from the artist that did the original medal, Fiesta's Racist, in 2015. And that's kind of what we're anniversarying, I guess. Now it's been 10 years, kind of talking about...
Who made that?
His name is Ali Friedrich. And he did it as a fundraiser for the Esperanza. Which all the medals are also, the proceeds are going to the Esperanza, the ones we're selling this year. But he reissued it. He did a new one. And as we were talking about doing the show, talking about how he wanted to show and express Fiesta's Racist, like as an artist, there are several things we kept coming back to, and that was that this isn't a process of being provocative just to be provocative. Like this really is coming from love, and it's coming from a healing point of view. The only way we can heal from all of these things is if we talk about them. And we wanted to talk about it in a joyful way, in a healing way, and not only just for ourselves, but for everyone. We can start these difficult conversations. And a great way to do that is through art. I mean, look what you just did with that, what you read. I mean, that's art, right? It's
theater.
It's a wonderful way to be able to talk about very complicated subjects. So this is really from him, and I'm so honored that he's allowed me to represent his work and curate the show and be part of La Voz and be part of all of these things. Because it was really important to us that we reached as many people as possible. another thing that's on the website, if you go and you do take the survey.
Tell us the name of the website.
It's on www.fiestasracist.com. And you can take a survey and tell us, want to talk about it? What do you think? We have some questions. Like, what do you think about it? And also, there is a link to another scholar's work, Dr. Liliana Saldana, who is doing work documenting artists that have protested. I guess I shouldn't say protest because I'd more like to say like protectors of our community.
Yes.
The protectors.
Through art.
Right.
Because I know some of them.
Right.
Yeah. And
That is
Liliana
protected
is a
history.
professor of
She Mexican American
studies at UTSA.
At UTSA.
Yeah, she's actually oversees the Mexican American Studies Academy, the only one held in the state for teachers every summer.
Right.
Yes, at
And
UTSA too.
her work that she's working on right now is the Voices of Digital Voices of Resistance Digital Archive.
Digital
So
archive.
there's a link on there if you'd like to check out some of the past work that's been done on the topic of Fiesta. And then we also have another link for suggested reading list. And that was important to me to do that because I wanted there to be like a quick place somebody could go, don't take what I'm saying, that Fiesta is racist or not racist, but here's some materials and you can read. We have quick links where you can just click on stuff and read some articles. And then we have books listed. And then we have a more extended reading list. And that reading list is really on the shoulders of tons of scholars that have been through my journey, through all of my peers. Like we kind of got together and we have all of these syllabi, all these reading lists. So it comes from there. So it stands on the shoulders of all of their work, which is why it's devastating to think that some of those things are being pulled out of schools, that Mexican American studies isn't going to be in schools in the future, because it changed my life. It really did.
Yes, of course. There's an awakening that comes from it. And even those of us that were in college way before you, we remember that moment as like, these books exist. Oh, and you can't get to them soon enough, and you can't reread them enough because they portray our history and our lives and our families the way other books never did. Aurelio.
Well, I just let me mention something.
Yes, of course.
This little piece on Don Chon speaks several times, and it's part of a collection of lessons that we're developing for the Museo del West Side that the Esperanza sponsor. I'm the lead of the education program. We've got about 60 units, and what we want is Mexican American Studies teachers or anybody to take these, because then kids can connect this better than to 10 pages from a history book. You know what I mean?
Yes,
In other words,
yes.
we personify
Their own personal family stories and photographs.
Exactly. And the Esperanza has the best record of women leaders in San Antonio's West Side than anybody. And so when the museo opens at the end of May, I hope you connect with somebody, because it's going to be it is a beautiful place.
Yes.
And I'm looking at it as an educational experience.
Yeah.
And that's been the great thing too about the La Voz, is that we have been getting feedback from educators.
Which is, you hold it up so that people can see it. It's the
La Voz.
newsletter, the monthly newsletter of the Esperanza.
And we have 4 articles from 4 different scholars and community members that are talking about this particular topic and how they feel about it. And so educators have been messaging us and saying that they're using this to talk to their students.
Gloria, the editor of that for 35 years, has done an amazing job, because it's come out for 35 years. And those lessons, that's very useful for teachers because they're short, they're teachable.
Right.
Yeah.
You get a 150-page history book, no matter how good it is you can. And that stuff out of La Voz is excellent.
In a real voice,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Without all of the
Yes.
other stuff that gets confusing, right? Like in real Argente's voice.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that when I've written to this topic in the past, I've had enormous pushback and a sense of great insult in certain communities in San Antonio. And what I always do is how can I better tell this story, and so that we can see it for what it is. It doesn't mean I don't go to Fiesta. I go to Fiesta. Believe me, almost every night I am out. So I love Fiesta. And for me, Fiesta is about family. I have nothing but great memories of my parents who made it possible to do some things, not all of them, but some things that we could enjoy a spring festival. So I hope that people that are listening in don't go away thinking that we're enemies of Fiesta.
Right. Yeah.
We're enjoyers of Fiesta, but we see flaws in its beginnings and hope that I think there needs to be a reconciliation of some sort.
Yeah.
And so I want you to describe what a possible reconciliation would look like if San Antonio would base this history and say, but we're not going to go there anymore.
Aurelio?
Well, no, I think it's very important. Obviously, some of us have been working on this a long time. Reconciliation means that we can sit around the table as equals. So if we can sit around the table and hear each other, I don't mind. Well, I do mind, but if somebody is an absolute racist, but they're willing to sit down and talk with me about it, let's say they have notions that all Mexicans are dumb or whatever, stuff like that. Okay, let's talk. As long as we can talk and you listen to me, that's the beginning. Because we have to have reconciliation in many ways. Our middle-class Mexicano with the working-class poor, our recent immigrant with the ones that live here. There's a lot of stuff that has happened. Our black-brown relationships are horrible, our internalized oppression about black and all that stuff. So we need reconciliation, but it has to be done in a safe environment, a place like right now, and honest, okay, let's give and take. I might not convince you and you might not convince me, but at least we're starting to listen to each other in this space where you're not just defending the fact that you sell tacos every year and that's where you make your money and you don't want it to shut down or whatever it is that's in your mind. Or you are maligning.
Which we're all pro tacos.
Right, yeah.
I mean, there's not a person I know that isn't pro taco.
But when when you see me as maligning this beautiful historical thing that you don't want to stain on it, I said, wait a minute, let's look about it, we had to do away with blackface because it was so racist and we don't laugh at that anymore. So there's a lot of things that had to change over time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's this, we're really getting into like systemic white supremacy, right? And like all of these other structures that exist in the city, like where you see it. So you don't think that it could exist in something as innocent as a party or a parade, right? So that's the great thing about this particular subject is that you can use it as a lens. And if maybe we can figure out something that would be a solution where everybody's maybe a little bit happy because nobody's going to be totally happy, then maybe we can move on to have other discussions, right? Like, why is there economic disparity in San Antonio? Why
was there redlining that banks wouldn't lend money to the West Side?
Right.
So
Why are the
and I know there's people out there that don't see the connection between the white supremacy of the start of Fiesta. Right. What we know is that the Order of the Alamo, that there were members of that organization that founded that organization that also were members of the Klan.
Yeah.
Right.
That is documented. We don't have to stretch the truth there. Or that paying homage to San Jacinto, for some people, they're heroes. And for others that have studied history more openly, say, well, they were defending slavery and they were taking land that belonged to other people at the time.
They invaded here.
Yeah, they invaded. And I remember first looking at some documents from pre-Alamo, and James Bowie and other heroes were called immigrants because they came from Kentucky or Alabama or other places, and they were entering another country. Texas was another country. And they were labeled as immigrants, but they never had that experience that other immigrants.
Yeah.
In fact, originally they had to learn Spanish. Their daughters would marry a Catholic Mexicano because that's the only way they could own land and stuff like that. But I bought a house in the Jefferson area 30 years ago, and you get all the documents from the very beginning. And in writing, it said that my home could not be sold to me or to a black.
Right.
That we could only be servants in that area.
There were covenants.
Can I tell you something, Aurelio?
Yeah.
When we bought our house, we experienced that same thing. And I'm a nerd, so I decided I was going to read everything. And one day I'm sitting there and my house was built like in 1925. I'm just, this little fantasy made up in my head. And then I read it and I realize, you mean my sweet grandmother could not have bought a house
Right.
here?
That's right.
She could only be there as a maid.
And I think that was one of the things that really set me on like a journey to learn why and understand why. Because I had these fantasies in my head that there was a woman that looked like me that was in 1925, you know, and cooking in the kitchen or, you know, doing whatever, hanging curtains, decorating. I don't know. Right. I had like this whole thing like made up in my head. And then when I read that, it like shattered me. And that's what I'm saying. Like these things are,
they still impact
They hurt.
when you read them.
They hurt.
Now, you mentioned the word made that I think is a good segue into something I wanted to talk about, which I had that same like ominous feeling when I read this in the history of the beautiful Nyosa. I go to Nyosa, enjoy all the food. I love, absolutely, totally support that the money is being raised for historic preservation of neighborhoods of important landmarks. It's such an important organization. But then I read about one of my favorite things to eat there is Maria's tortillas. And Maria originally was the maid of one of the ladies who set up night in old San Antonio, and it was her tortillas that she made by hand that now we see all those women making by hand, and it was just, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now. And that leads to your discussion about those beautiful flowers that you brought.
Yeah, so I came across these from, you know, rascuache means they were in a box.
Explain rascuache. Yeah, let's tell the audience.
Okay.
Rasquatch.
Yeah, rascuache used to be, I guess, a derogatory
Low
term.
class.
Yeah,
Low
like
class.
Like building a house with different materials and not
Very low class.
taking stuff from the trash.
Yeah.
And, you know, like
I love it though. I just love it.
right. But how we use it is a way of survival.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
But not only do we use it as a way of survival, we make things beautiful.
Yes.
So
Color.
it may be taking a tire.
What was trash becomes art.
Yeah,
Yes.
taking a tire, cutting it, painting it, decorating it, and
Yes.
it's a planter
It's
now
planted,
in your
yes.
front yard.
Yes.
So we see examples of this.
All over San Antonio, the west side, south side, it's beautiful.
So I grew up that way too, and I did not know that it was like
Look
like
down.
other people did
Right.
it.
Yeah.
either. And then
Or that it was looked down upon. I had to grow up and go elsewhere to see that it was looked down
Remember
upon.
the Folgers coffee cans with vines
Yeah.
coming
Oh
out of them?
yes! Oh my God!
Right,
So
right.
beautiful.
And even basic stuff. Like I remember my grandpa had baby jars
See.
in the garage
Oh,
For
yeah.
nails.
For nails.
Oh
Way
yes, I
before
loved
the-
them.
Way before the ecology
And they
system.
were stuck up on a shelf so you could undo it.
We would straighten nails.
So
Ribbon was
helpful.
platinum.
It was just like, to me, that's
Yeah.
Chicano ingenuity.
Absolutely. And so that's how Dr. Frausto, describes this.
Dr.
that it-
Tomás.
Tomás Ibarra Frausto. That it
A scholar of scholars.
Yes, amazing. And so generous to talk with students. It's just awesome. And so then, like, other people did it, and I met Augusto Cuellar, who was an artist that kind of also does that in his work, and him and I just were like,
A fashion designer.
yes, fashion designer, and we were working on a project together when we first met, and we had literally no money. We had nothing, and we really were taking things that were in the trash in the corner of a room, and we were making like wigs, and we were making like all this stuff. And that's just kind of how that progressed for me. And then I've been able to use that even in my education. And sometimes studying things that other people think are trash.
See.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
the
those
flowers,
flowers
yes. So the
are,
flowers.
okay, I have to just, and we're running out of time,
Yeah.
but I want to just tell you about an illustration that never got in the paper. A former editor who isn't a long time ago, who did not leave the paper in a happy way, killed it. And it was a beautiful illustration for Fiesta and a story that also got killed. And that doesn't happen a lot at this paper or other papers. It has to be extreme, right? So this was an editor's decision to kill this story about racism in Fiesta. And the illustration showed a beautiful girl looking to the side, and you see the back of her Order of the Alamo gown. At the very bottom, almost so subtly drawn at the bottom, were a series of about 5 or 6 Mexicanas sewing
Yes.
every single last ornamentation on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It said so much about Fiesta in one image.
It does. And that's why, again, we keep coming back to it's complicated, right? It's complicated because those dresses cost now they probably cost what, $30,000?
Oh no,
for-
far more. They used to cost like 60. They're
Yeah,
probably
they're
up to 100.
Very expensive to make
Yeah.
these dresses. And you think, oh, well, making up a fake aristocracy is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like maybe we just get rid of that. Maybe we just get rid of the Order of the Alamo, right? But there are seamstresses who are gente, who that's how they make their money
Right,
throughout
exactly.
the year. And so these are some little samples that we came across, and
They came off a dress?
Right.
They were, I guess they didn't use them, right?
Yes.
And so
Or if
you
a gown
see-
was torn up or something.
Yeah.
yeah, like how intricate, like every little part of these leaves, they're all hand sewn, and they're super heavy. Like this is talent
And you
Expertise.
can bet that if there's one, there were hundreds of them.
yes.
And some of the
On every-
designers were men also.
Oh,
There were
yes,
men
of
and
course.
women doing that on the west side. Yeah.
So if
and-
you get rid of the Order of the Alamo, you get rid of all of
Yeah.
that. You are
and,
getting rid
and
of
you don't get rid of any of these organizations. What you hope is that these organizations also are evolving, as are our own,
Right.
in the Mexican American community and every community, because what we know is humans love to celebrate. Humans
Yes.
love the celebration of spring. Humans will do fake royalty, even if it's at a junior high prom. We can't
Oh, that's
help
true.
ourselves.
That's true. Yeah.
I remember, it was a big race at Truman Junior High when somebody was crowned the queen of of that dance, right? So it's an inherent sort of need to play folly, to have a good time, to crown a king and a queen. And I hope it never goes away, but I hope we learn from it. And I can thank both of you so much for coming into our studio and informing us and gracing us with your
I
presence.
want to honor the education you've been giving to our community for many years.
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
thank
the
you.
opportunity to be able to talk about this.
Thank you so much for coming on Nosotros. Both of you, you're fabulous. You can watch video versions of Nosotros on YouTube and listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. My Metro column appears Wednesdays and Fridays in the San Antonio Express News. And if you want to reach me, my email address is eayala@express-news.net. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Nosotros.